Welcome to the Disrupt Leaders Podcast, Season 2, Episode 1, new format. I know I'm excited. I know Jules is also super excited. We've got an exciting topic this week as well. We're talking about competing priorities. Now, this week we've got 3 different topics. Today is what you should prioritize as a leader. Later in the week, we'll have how to manage your people's priorities. And then lastly, how to use competing priorities to excel. But Jules, that's enough about later this week. Today, the agenda. What are we getting in for? You know we love an agenda statement.
We love a sweet agenda statement. So today, at the end of this video, you'll know what do competing priorities look like for you as a leader, and then you'll understand how to manage urgent versus day-to-day tasks, then understand what your leader's priorities, your manager's priorities are, and finally, using all this information, how do you structure your day?
What are competing priorities, Jules? Like, I think it's one of those things, like, you know, we all kind of get pulled pillar to post. So to you, what do competing priorities mean? When we say that, what are we talking about specifically?
Yeah, a couple of things. So when you get into leadership, what you'll notice is that sometimes there is no cohesion between the kind of what happens in frontline and senior leadership. And that happens for multiple reasons that we'll get into. But essentially, you kind of have to manage. Sometimes a senior leader might think this is a great strategy to move forwards with, but your people might not agree with that, or your stakeholders, some other stakeholders might not agree with that, or it might not gel with previous strategies that have worked for that business. And you really need to make sure you're really handling all those different priorities, making sure you're providing feedback and all that kind of stuff as well. What do you think competing priorities are for you, Bill?
Yeah, I think everything you just said there. And then I think the other thing is as well, you'll also have a bunch of like your actual priorities, like tasks that you need to achieve as part of your role. And then you'll also have your people tapping you on the shoulder being like, Bill, I really need help with this thing. I think this customer that's really having a meltdown. I need you to do this for me. Oh, my dog's sick, or, you know, I need help with that. And like, that's also a big part of competing priorities is just managing those like little, like, there's like there are various levels of urgent. There's urgent and there's urgent. And then there's your regular priorities, and it's how to like balance all of that at once and still not go home without having a mentee beat. That is what it is to me.
Yeah.
I think that is what competing priorities are, and I think it is very much you get pulled pillar to post some days. Some days I say this all the time. Some days you are the dog. Some days you are the fire hydrant, and it is how to make sure you are the dog more often than not, I think. So, Jules, I guess my question to you, how do you handle that? How do you handle like the day-to-day being pulled pillar to post?
As we said in our agenda, making sure you understand the urgency of each of these priorities. So it doesn't need to be completed today, doesn't need to be completed this week. Is it a long-term play? You know what I mean? Beyond that, you know, making sure, and we'll get to this at the end of the video, is making sure you really have a structure to your day, to your week, so you understand what your day-to-day looks like. And so you can really understand, is this a day-to-day kind of, you know, I need to kind of tick this off every single day kind of activity, or is it something that it's out of left of field, it's something that's going to add value to my career or add value to my people? You know, where does that sit in terms of my day-to-day activity? So really understanding where this come from, the urgency of, you know, this particular priority that's coming through, and who's actually requesting is really important as well. You know what I mean? As much as we don't like to think so, we like to think we all live in this really equal world where things are coming through. We do not, right? There's going to be some seniority sometimes attached to some of these requests. So, you know, if you value your job and your career, you might want to balance that out based on that. What about yourself, Bill?
Yeah, I think you've kind of touched on the exact point, and I would kind of summarize everything you said there as understanding each of your priorities. I think it's knowing as a base level, the list of things that you have to do day to day, Monday to Friday, like your core tasks, and then also looking at what the extra tasks are, and looking at one, who has asked them for sure, like, you know, unfortunately, whether you like it or not, like the big boss comes in and asks you to do a task, it's probably priority number 1 usually.
Yeah.
And then I think the other thing is time sensitive. And I think there's like, I don't remember the name of it. There's definitely like a thing for that. It's like a graph. And it's like, you know, how urgent is the task? How important is the task? And then whether you delegate it or not. I don't know do you know the name of that one? I feel like.
No, not off the top of my head, but I do know what you're talking about. But I think it kind of brings us to, I guess, a third point, but it's kind of melded in a little bit. And I think one way you can understand what your priorities are is simply by asking your leader or your leadership group, right? So you might have a singular leader, or you might have a couple of leaders that you kind of deal with and have dotted line reporting lines into. So now, you know, for some of you guys, you might have a weekly catch up with your leader, a monthly catch up, quarterly, depending on your kind of business structure and how you work. But it's a really good opportunity to start off with asking your leader what your priorities should be for the next period. So if it's a weekly catch up, hey, these are the things I want to accomplish over the next week. What do you think my priorities should be? Is there anything that you can think of that I should be doing over the next week or so? So when you start to kind of structure your day, you have a sense of what the priority should be. They might tell you, hey, do this first. I want this done by Tuesday, right? So then on Monday, I've got to work on this all day to get that done by Tuesday, etc. So asking the question is important. Some of you might feel weird and go, oh, maybe I should show some autonomy and not ask this question from my leader. I personally think that's a dangerous pathway because you're guessing. And I think most leaders, I know me being a leader, I would love my people to ask me what the priority should be instead of guessing themselves. And then at the end of the week going, oh, no, actually, I didn't get X, Y, Z done because I was guessing that's not going to be a priority for you.
I think that the thing to do is kind of both, right? Like, I think don't go into your meeting with your leader and just be like, hey, one of my priorities, what am I doing this week? Go in and kind of show that autonomy to your boss, being like, hey, so obviously I just wanted to align what my priorities are this week. What I was thinking I should probably start with is this. I think this is the most important. I was looking to get that done by tomorrow. And then by the end of the week, I'll have this and this done. Is that correct? Or is there anything else you want me to do? I think you've accomplished the showing your autonomy and showing that you're thinking about these things. And then two, at the same time, just like qualified your own answers and make sure that you've got the correct information. So that when you do go and roll it out, it all kind of like comes together.
I love that.
Yeah. I think that's a big piece of that. And I also think a big piece of that, and it's kind of moving into the next topic, is how to say no and how to push back when you get given that topic. Like if your leader comes to you and they're like, hey, I actually need you to add this in, and you know that it's going to be a large chunk of work, what you should do and how you should say no. So if that happens to you, Jules, so let's say you're in your catch-up, you're having that first meeting with your boss, you've gone, these are my priorities, this is what I think I should work on. And they're like, no, I need you to do this fourth thing that's going to take 10 hours. And you know that you're not going to have enough time to do all of the other things as well. And you're starting to have that stress. What are you going to say? What are you going to do?
I basically tell them, okay, so you want me to do these 4 things. These are the other things I need to do as a part of my job, as a part of being a leader. Where do you want me to prioritize these things? And what consequences are you happy with by the end of the week? So for instance, if they tell you these 4 things is what they want you to do, but you have some daily stuff you need to do as a part of your kind of leadership, if I let those slip through the cracks, is that going to be okay with you? Essentially is what you're asking. And they might then look at that and go, oh, okay, no, maybe then do the 2 things. These 2 things are high priority because I understand you've got all these other things you need to accomplish as well. If they're insightful and they're kind of empathetic human beings, they'll understand that.
I think a lot of it comes down to something we spoke about on season 1 of the Disrupt Leader podcast, is not saying no. Right? I think if they come to you and they ask you to do this like huge thing, if you just go, no, it's not going to go down well. Or if you really push back on it, I don't think you're ever going to get the outcome you're looking for. I think they're just going to end up giving you more work. I think it is about having that conversation. And much like you've said there, and be like, absolutely, I see the vision. I see why this is so important. I can absolutely prioritize that for you. No dramas. However, I'm definitely not going to be able to achieve a lot of my other things. Which of my other current priorities are you happy for me to let go this week? Or are you happy for me to drop off? Or even delegate is another opportunity as well. Fantastic opportunity to loop your people in and be like, I can do that, but do you mind if I get one of my people to handle this and this instead? I think is really important. So how to say no? The secret answer is you don't. You say yes, but. I think yes, but is the new way to say no. I think, in my opinion, when it comes to the workplace.
Correct. Yeah, I think, and you don't want to get a reputation of someone who's constantly combative, argumentative. You're not going to win any friends in senior leadership. I think you're correct. I think it's better to prioritize than to just say no, for sure. I think that's the lesson.
Correct.
If you take away anything from this episode.
Yeah, correct. So I think in terms of balancing the urgent from the day to day, I think that kind of covers off how to balance the urgent coming from the top down, right? Like you have that conversation and go, yeah, cool, this is what I can do, this is what I can't do, blah, blah, blah. How do you do that with your people? Because it's very different. They're coming from the bottom up. They're coming to ask you for things when you're already busy, you're already sweating, you're doing stuff, and they're just asking you things. What do you do?
Yeah, I think you said it earlier, right? There's urgent and there's urgent, right? So I think just understanding, I think that the first thing to do is making sure at the very start of your interaction with your people when you take over your team, setting expectations as to, how you want certain things done. How do you want them to approach leave, for example, or, sick leave, or, do you want them to call in, message you? Do you want them to, doesn't have to be the day before as morning off? What time, what are your cutoff times? I think all those setting out a rules for engagement when it comes to that kind of stuff is really important. Because I think if
Yeah.
you let it be the way it is, people will misconstrue that as anything goes. I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
I can call in
Yeah.
2 hours into my shift and just tell my manager that I'm not coming in, and that's I can take
Yeah.
leave whenever I want, what I want, but that might not be the reality for your business, right? So I think it's
Yeah.
just making sure you set rules for engagement, set expectations, in other words, as well. Like we love our
Now,
agendas, set an agenda.
yeah, I think so. And I think a big part of that for me is when you've got tasks that you have to do, I think
Mm,
don't be afraid to just not respond on Slack or Teams and stuff. I think it's really good. One
mm,
expectation you should set is that if I say I'm busy, you're not going to get a response from me because I
yes.
have work to do. Like I understand that the consultants need someone, but there are probably a bunch of other team leaders they can ask as well. But if I've got an urgent task that I need to work on, put yourself in busy on Slack and don't respond. It's so annoying. I'm one of those people.
Mm,
I hate seeing notifications and I hate seeing them there. But if you start responding to one person, you'll end up responding to a bunch of people and
correct.
then you'll lose 45 minutes like that. It happens so easily in the
Mm,
workplace. And so, yeah, I think my tip around this, managing from the bottom up, is just make it very clear when you're going to be busy. I usually sometimes will send a message to my team. And it's like,
mm,
hey, team, not going to be available for the next hour. Got reporting to do, got work to do, got this thing to do. If you
mhm,
need anything, reach out to someone else. And I think that's a big part of setting those expectations is really kind of like outlining that and letting that know, which then also leads me really nicely in something that I don't mind. Like we're talking about structuring your day, right? So far, you've got your priorities. Your boss has told you exactly what's important. You've delegated the things that you can't do. You've then told your people, hey, I'm not going to be available, blah, blah, blah. How do you kind of like link all that together? I don't know, you, Jules, I'm a bit of a calendar bandit.
mhm,
I like to block things out on my calendar, and specifically a lot of those tasks that, like, I work in a contact center. We have to put time aside to listen to calls, do things like that. I just block the time out, and so my entire day is pretty scheduled.
mm.
What about you?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think using your calendar, your Outlook calendar, if if your business uses Outlook, but is
Yeah,
really important. As you said before, it is definitely the link that brings all those aspects we just spoke about together, right? Because what
yeah,
happens is you can push back and say no, and the way you can do that is when you go into your meeting with your leader, you can bring up your calendar and be like, here's my
hmm
week, here's my next week, what that looks like, and all the things I'm doing,
mm,
and where do you want me to slot the new thing you've said, right? And the same
yeah.
thing with your people, you said
I
before,
love that.
was really, really key, is you can even be really transparent with your people and even share your calendar with your people as well. Because then
Yeah,
they know, okay, why isn't Jules responding, or why isn't Bill responding at this time? Or they can look at calendar, or he's in a meeting, or he's
yeah,
trying to do X, Y, Z. And
yeah,
so it brings that it doesn't create that illusion that you're not just responding because you just can't be asked doing it. It's because
correct.
you've got other stuff going on in your life, right?
Yeah,
So it gives them transparency. I think calendars are transparent. They're a tool that you
yeah,
can use to help you organize your mind and your week, but also,
yeah,
yeah, it works out really well for sure.
yeah, 100%. One thing that I do, so this is exactly how I structure my day, and I do this every single day. I'll
Mm,
log in first thing in the morning and I actually just get a notepad, like a sticky note up, right? And I literally just list all of the tasks that I have to do that day, like
mm,
everything from like the absolute massive, like this is an urgent must done, through to just like the small, minute things that I want to try and tick up that day.
mm,
And then I'll kind of look at them and like, there's a few things I think of. One, how urgent are they? The more urgent they are, the closer to the top of the list they'll go, and I'll like move them up. And then I start to think about how long those tasks should take. For example, my reporting, I send that to the team so they know their stats, they know their KPIs. I consider that relatively urgent. I think it's good for them to know where they're at so that today they can go, okay, yesterday this wasn't so great. I need to focus on this. I
mm,
also know it only takes 10, 15 minutes. And so because it's relatively something I consider high priority, and it's also something that's very short, it'll be right at the top of the list. And I
mm,
kind of just structure my entire day like that, and I block everything out in time, and then I just book that time into my calendar.
mm,
It seems at first when I started doing it, it felt a little anal for me, but it really helps me not stress, especially if I've got a task that I know I've got something that really needs to be done by the end of today. It's going to take about 2 hours to do. Okay, well, this is going to take, I need this done by the end of the day, 2 hours. I actually have 2 hours between 1 and 3.
mhm,
I'll do it at 1 o'clock. And then
mm,
I don't have to stress about it. I don't spend all day being like, oh my God, the big boss has asked me to do that thing and I really need to get that thing done. It's okay. It's getting done at 1 o'clock. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And I think that's how I kind of structure my day.
yeah.
Um,
The other trick that a previous leader taught me ages ago, just kind of going into the calendar a little bit more, is color coding, right? So it's up to you. Not everyone does this, but I do this. So like, I've got coaching one color. I've got,
mm,
meetings with my leader, one color. I've got senior manager meetings with one color. You know what I mean? So I know when I'm looking at my week, looking at my day, I know where my time's kind of being spent by at a glance, without having to read each individual thing, if that makes
yeah,
sense as well. And that might help you as well. I'm not saying have to do that. I think doing your calendar alone and being really tight around it alone will help you quite a bit. But this is just for me. Sometimes I had a glance, so I'll look at my calendar and be like, all right, today I've got this many coaching sessions, this many, whatever, like I know what my day's been spent on as well.
We've covered off most of the things that we're looking to cover off. We've definitely spoken about how to balance those expectations coming from top down. I think we've definitely spoken about how to handle it from bottom up as well. And then also kind of just how to structure your day to get around those few bits and pieces. If there's anything you think we've missed or anything you'd like us to go into more detail on, please do drop a comment and let us know. Otherwise, we'll see you for part 2 later in the week. It's going to be how to manage your people's priorities and make sure you've got them chugging along that track like Thomas' tank engine. Have a great day. Thank you.